Welcome to Law Next PR, the podcast where we put a spotlight on the latest news coming out of the legal tech industry. This is Bob Ambrogi, and on each episode of Law Next PR, I interview a legal tech company about its latest news or developments. Today, we're talking about the launch of a new legal research tool called Align Research, which takes a different approach than other legal research products on the market. You'll hear more about that in a second. Joining me to tell us all about it is Sam Davidoff, the founder and CEO of Align and a former litigation partner at Williams & Conley. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Bob. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. I'm really excited about this conversation today because I love talking about legal research in general. And you have taken a different approach from what I haven't actually seen it yet, but from what I've read about it, you've taken a different approach to this. So I'm curious about why it was that you wanted to even launch a new legal research product, and what did you see missing in the market out there, or what was wrong with the products that are already out there?
It's funny, so my company, this is our first foray into an AI product, but we started, Align and have made products for a number of years. And I actually explicitly said, I remember when I started the company, I'm not doing legal research. That's a well-saturated market. I don't need to play in that space. What changed my mind, in addition to AI coming around, was really sort of what I perceive as a gap in the current AI products, which really comes from two things. One is just the task that I felt like I was doing as an associate and was asking people to do for me as a partner in legal research often just boiled down to me saying, essentially, get me the cases. Find me every district court that has ever ruled this way on a motion to dismiss. Has any court ever, found, for the defendant on this kind of issue and these kinds of facts? That kind of legal research question where you want to get, a kind of granular set of cases on a sometimes really, really specific topic with specific parameters happens all the time, right? It happens when you're thinking about strategy, when you're going to talk with a client, all these things. Right? But that kind of just find me the cases, that task goes on a lot. And it struck me that, I don't want to say none, I'm sure there's something I may have missed, but in general, that's not the mode of AI legal research. The mode of AI legal research is more, I ask a question and it gives back hopefully a well-researched and validated answer, but it gives an answer. And that's a little different than I thought what at least a lot of times litigators want. So that was sort of one thing. And then the second thing is, and maybe this is just me thinking I have a different way to skin the cat, but is the hallucination problem. And I don't need to tell you or anybody watching this video, I'm guessing, about the hallucination issue. But my sort of take on it is that the problem is really structural. It's not that there's going to eventually be an AI or a tool that just eliminates hallucinations because it got better. That the problem is a little bit, anytime you're asking the AI to tell you something, there's a risk of it hallucinating. That's just the way that they work. And what this product, the approach it takes, by basically what it does is you ask it a legal question. It goes away for a while. It's not instantaneous. It takes a couple of hours. It goes off. It does its research, finds cases, reads them. But all it ever gives back to you is a set of cases with the key parts highlighted. And the thing about it is it's not telling you anything. It's just showing you. And that's kind of my idea for sort of structurally how to address the hallucination issue, is if all the AI is doing is essentially pointing you to pre-existing things, as opposed to writing some narrative for you, it actually can't hallucinate. It could miss something. It could highlight something that you don't agree with, but it can't make something up because it's never telling you anything. It's just showing you. So, the second part of this product, aside from just, I think lawyers want to find the cases, is to kind of try this show, not tell model of having AI work for you.
Yeah, I don't mean this in a negative way, but it sounds sort of old school in terms of the way we used to do research, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's what there's no secret where I get my ideas from, right? I was practicing law and this is how we used to do it. And there's a little part of me that says, hey, some of our old tricks still kind of work.
Yeah, no, it is interesting how many of the legal research platforms have evolved into this approach of, as you say, of just giving the answer. And that leaves you having to put a lot of faith in that answer and in the process that leads you to that answer. And it does take away some of the creativity, I think, of being a lawyer, right?
I totally agree. I think I mean, look, I sometimes say to people, it's a mistake to delegate to AI the things that you actually want to learn. And legal research is a great example of that, right? If you give to AI the job of actually reading the cases and distilling, the final analysis, from those cases, it means you're not doing it. And the truth is, that's both sometimes the fun of being a lawyer, but also sometimes the strategic advantage of being a lawyer, that I've read the cases and I see a new angle for how we could argue this, in front of this judge. Or, I know courts have held this way, but if you look at the facts of those cases, it's a little different. Those kinds of judgments, if you turn it over to the AI, you're basically saying, I'm not even going to be in a position to make those kinds of judgments, make those decisions. And so I totally agree. Like, I kind of want to give the AI the hard, annoying things, the going through hundreds, thousands of cases to find the 30 cases that are interesting. Then you get to read and think about the 30 interesting cases. That's exactly the setup.
So, something else that you're doing differently with this product is the way you're pricing it. Explain that.
Yeah. So we're pricing it on a per job basis. And, in other words, you pay $100 for each, question you ask that it returns cases. And, this reflects two things. One, it reflects a little bit of how my business is run. We don't have, we're bootstrapped. We are self-funded. So I don't have a huge war chest that I can use to pay token prices. So as you and I imagine your listeners know, AI costs are real. This is a different software game. Every time somebody runs a search on my platform, and we, by the way, do let people run some searches for free to try it out. But every time they push search on one of those, it costs me money in terms of AI tokens. So partly, I just, I need to recoup those costs. But secondly, I think that's actually a reality in the industry. And I think that I, of course, don't know what other companies are doing, but I suspect that currently there's a bit of subsidization going on, that people are offering, sort of all you can eat, both in legal tech and outside of legal tech. In the AI world generally, they are offering sort of all you can eat subscription fees in the hopes of building up user bases and, getting people onto the platform and comfortable with it. But I don't think it can last. I mean, these token costs are real. The amount of money that, every legal tech AI provider has to pay to Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini, that's real money and it's per token. And the truth is, the money that those companies have to pay to rent the time on the GPUs is real money. And so I think consumption pricing is inevitable. And the combination of those two things is we need it. And also, I think it's coming everywhere. I thought, let's get it out there and let's do it. And my thought is it actually should make sense for law firms. In other words, you should be able to say to your client, look, this is a research task that it used to take an associate a couple hours to do at a couple $100 or more per hour in a billable time.
Yeah.
Now here's a flat fee, $100 to do it. That value proposition should make sense. And I think law firms will and should start having those kinds of conversations with their clients.
Yeah, so it's a reasonable price, and you can pass it through to your client. I mean, I think that makes sense. Your press materials use the line that Align Research retrieves rather than generates, and you've already explained that to some extent. But walk me through what happens when I've got a research question. How does it all work?
Sure. So without revealing a ton of the secret sauce, and because there is a little bit of this, look, at some level, what I've tried to do is bake into an AI agent how and I think other people who have experience doing legal research would go about it. But in general, the idea is it's a pipeline, right? So it starts with your question and it has an AI model look at the question, make some decisions about, what are the legal research issues in here, break it down somewhat. And then it, has another agent decide what kinds of searches, how to go out and find cases, and it assembles, various groups of cases to look at. It can then have another AI model go in and read those cases and make, classifications and relevance decisions about them. Based on that, another AI model might come in and then decide it needs to go out and get some more cases and bring them in. And, and then at the end, there's an AI that goes through and decides what parts are relevant and should be highlighted and things like that. So it's truly an example of an agentic workflow, right? It's not one chat back and forth with the AI. It is a number of different models kind of working in tandem, each doing specific tasks that they're good at. And the sort of aggregate sum of it comes back to to what you see at the end, which is this set of cases that are the relevant portions highlighted. It's also why it doesn't happen instantaneously. It's a process. It's actually doing more like what a human researcher would do. And so that's what we do. And so a lot of our engineering time actually is in fine tuning that sort of thing. I don't mean fine tuning in the technical LLM sense. I mean figuring out, for each particular stage in this, what model is the best, what model is the fastest, how should we tune the prompt, and sort of putting together this almost assembly line of a legal research pipeline.
And what is it that I get back? Is there a place on your website where I'm getting the cases, or are they coming to me in an email, or what's the delivery mechanism?
Exactly. It's on our website. I mean, it emails you and it tells you, hey, we're done. Your cases are ready. And we do that because I don't want people to have to sit there and watch it. To me, it's much better if you could go off in parallel and do some other work. But then you go on our site and the cases are there kind of in a binder-like format. And they're all highlighted. And so you can just sort of click, you can read the whole case. You can click to the highlighted portions, but you get it displayed for you in your, in your browser. You can also download them, and you can, download them as PDFs. You could do other interesting things with them, and you could print them, but you could also, if you want to give them to another AI, model to do something else with it, you can. We certainly let you pull them out of the system and do them. But the general method for accessing them is through the web interface.
And if I've submitted my research question and I get the email and I go in and look at it and I think, man, I've got a follow-up question, what happens then?
So right now, it's a good question. Right now, you do another question, or you take those cases and you put them somewhere else. I mean, it's certainly, I don't have any problem with people downloading the 30 cases we get, or sometimes maybe your question was really broad and it generated 150 cases. Take those cases and put them into Claude or put them into Harvey and say, I now have some questions about these cases that are pulled. Let's refine it. I'm fine with that, right? My task is to get you that set of cases. If you want to then use another AI to interrogate them or talk to them, that people are doing that. And I think that's a great use of
Yeah.
As long as people don't forget to read them.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the job. It seems a lot of lawyers are forgetting to do these days. What's the scope of your case law coverage?
So it's U.S. It's U.S. cases, federal and state. We currently are using Court Listener,
Okay.
a public database, well known, used by a lot of products. We don't have any more scope than that now. We are actually building out some additional case law databases, although the truth is our goal for now is we'd like to give that back to Court Listener. I really don't think that I'm not looking to make money, and I have a little bit of a philosophical bent to thinking that I don't really think having the case law database should be the differentiator among legal tech firms. I also have a self-interested reason for saying that, but I like the cases to be out there, and then people can do different clever things with them. So we are building out our own case database, but we're also looking to get all those cases back up into the Court Listener opinion database, which I think is really fabulous.
And you mentioned earlier that this helps avoid the issue of hallucinations, but maybe you could just expand on why that is. How does it avoid that issue?
Sure. Look, hallucinations come from the fact that these models are generative. So they generate text. And what happens is they generate text based on their context and their prompts, et cetera. And, at some level of remove, they don't really have a concept of truth, right? They are trying to follow instructions and generate text, and that can be made more or less reliable, but it's not possible for it to be perfect. And so a current model is to say, okay, and I think that is sort of received wisdom now. And the traditional answer now is, so verify what it does. Have the AI write something and then make a person go in and verify it. I have a little problem with that in that, first of all, I think that work is dreadful. The verifying an AI is a dreadful human task to have to do. I also think at scale, people aren't going to do it. They're going to cheat and they're going to, use AI to verify. The reason our product can't hallucinate is because we hide all the generative part from the user. We don't ever let that get to the user. We use the generative part. It is generating things, and our AI may, under the hood, hallucinate. But the worst that can happen, because our AI hallucinates, is it can just not point to a case, or point to a case that is, doesn't actually relate to the question. But since all we're ever giving back is cases with portions highlighted, we never expose the hallucination to the lawyer, if that makes sense. So it's not possible for a lawyer to have access to, anything that the LLM might have done hallucinatorily. And so, so we're sort of forcing the lawyers to use their brains and read the cases.
Yeah. If you're giving them the cases, the only ones who can hallucinate are the lawyers themselves.
That's right.
Which I've heard judges complain about happening a bit.
That's a problem, but that's an old problem, right?
That's an old problem. And then what about, just I'm curious, in terms of the cases that you deliver citable as you deliver them? And do they have official citations, or can they be used in a brief or whatever?
Often, yes. Anyone who's used Court Listener will know they've actually done a tremendous job of providing real reporter citations, and sometimes even the sort of unofficial Westlaw and Lexis citations. So very often that's the case. Sometimes there may be additional work that needs to be done. In other words, sometimes we may only have a docket number or and that for a particular court, you'll need to go and look the case up in a more traditional research tool. And that's certainly true. And I'm not really looking, at least at this point, to sort of, replace Westlaw and Lexis, and say you don't need those tools anymore. They offer nothing. I really don't think that's true at all. They have amazing databases that they've built up. But I think that our tool can save you a lot of time and attorney hours in terms of, finding those initial sets of cases. And yes, for some of them, you might want to go and get the Westlaw site or, do further research in your traditional legal research platform.
So I know the website is align.lawyer. And if somebody watching this right now wants to get started on it, what's involved in that?
Yeah.
You said there are a couple of free trials or free searches, or?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's, if you want to read more about it, it's align.lawyer/research. You can also just go to research.align.lawyer. It's free to sign up. It is free. You get, we have a free tier that gets you 3 free jobs a month, and we'd love for people to go on and try it out and see if it works. And if they like it, we hope they'll upgrade to the paid tier, but it's free to try, free to go on and start doing legal research.
Well, I'm looking forward to go out and try it myself. I've got a couple of questions in mind already that I want to try. Anything else that you wanted people to know about this that we haven't had a chance to talk about?
No, I think it's great. I think I'd love people to go and try it. And I guess what I would say is, if you try it and whether you like it or you don't like it, let me know. What you started with, I love thinking about and talking about legal research and AI legal research. So no one's going to be annoying me by sending me their suggestions.
Well, Sam, congratulations on this launch, and thanks for coming on the show to talk about it.
Always a pleasure, Bob. Thank you very much.
That's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. And you can also find all of the episodes on the LawNext Legal Tech directory under our resources tab. It's Bob Ambrogi. Thanks for joining us today.